What do you mean I have to park all the way back there? Victor Langley squinted at the distant gravel lot the assistant manager pointed toward. He was dressed in a faded polo shirt, cargo pants, and a weathered baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. His gray-flecked beard added just enough age to throw off anyone who might have seen his face on a corporate newsletter. Sorry, man. The assistant manager, a tall guy in his late 20s with a name tag that read Trevor, shrugged. Those front spots are for senior staff and VIP guests. You'll get used to it. Victor gave a polite nod and turned toward the back lot. This was his 14th stop in a chain of 19 stores he'd bought nearly 8 years ago. Back then, he'd been a hungry entrepreneur in his 30s, eager to make something last. He'd grown the company fast, but as it expanded, he'd lost track of what was happening in the trenches. Reports were polished. Numbers looked fine, but something about Store 14 kept bothering him. He'd received a few vague complaints: high turnover, low morale, but nothing concrete. So he suited up in disguise and applied to work as a trainee stock associate under a fake name. Since most of the newer hires came from the area and turnover was high, no one at the store had ever met him in person. It only took 1 hour on site for things to start feeling wrong. The manager, a woman named Dana, barely glanced at him when he arrived. Trevor, the assistant, handled orientation. You'll be shadowing one of our floor leads today, Kara. She's one of the better ones, Trevor said, chewing gum as he handed Victor a radio and name badge that read Rick. Just follow her lead, stock what she tells you, and don't get in the way. Victor nodded and followed Kara, a young woman in her mid-20s with tired eyes and a calm voice. She greeted him kindly, asked about his background, and showed him how to rotate stock. She was patient, efficient, underpaid, Victor guessed. But as the shift picked up, he noticed patterns. The same 3 employees disappeared for long stretches at a time. A cashier named Celeste was openly scrolling her phone behind the counter while customers waited. 2 stockers argued near the loading dock about who was doing the trash run this time, neither moving. At lunch, Kara sat alone on a crate in the back room, eating a sandwich from a plastic bag. Don't you get a break room? Victor asked, cracking open a bottled water. Technically, yes, she smiled faintly. But some of the other staff. Well, it's easier out here. Victor raised an eyebrow. They give you trouble? She hesitated. Let's just say if you're not in the group, you don't get much space. He didn't push. Not yet. But it matched what he'd seen since arriving: favoritism. Laziness. A sharp divide between those who worked and those who coasted. Later that afternoon, a customer walked in asking for help lifting a heavy box into her car. Kara volunteered without hesitation. When they returned, Trevor was leaning against the front counter, laughing with Celeste. You aren't paid to be a valet, Kara, he said loud enough for Victor to hear. I was helping a customer, she said, wiping sweat from her brow. Trevor just chuckled and turned away. As the day wound down, Victor walked to the front of the store to see a silver SUV pulling into one of the close-up parking spots marked reserved. A young man in designer shades stepped out, laughing with Celeste, who had come outside to greet him. Your spot's open again, he heard her say, tossing him a wink. Victor's eyes narrowed. Over the next hour, he watched it happen twice: more friends of staff pulling up and getting the best spots. Meanwhile, Kara and 2 other quiet workers walked a quarter-mile to their cars. That night, back at his hotel, Victor stared at the ceiling. He'd seen enough to know something was off. But what hit him hard wasn't just the favoritism, it was the way good workers like Kara were being pushed to the edge, while the worst ones strutted around with special treatment. He had 5 more days undercover at this store. He wasn't going to waste them. By day 3, Victor knew exactly where to stand if he wanted to go unnoticed. There was a narrow aisle in the back corner of the stockroom, behind a stack of unused shelving units and broken signage. From there, he had a partial view of the loading bay and the employee break table without being seen. He didn't linger long, just enough to understand how the place really operated when no one thought they were being watched. At 7:45, the store opened. By 8:15, Celeste was already off the floor, leaning against the back counter eating a breakfast burrito and chatting with Trevor. Neither had touched the freight delivery that had come in an hour earlier. Instead, Kara and one other associate, a quiet man named Luis, were hauling boxes from the loading dock with a dolly that had a broken wheel. Victor joined them, offering to take the heavier end without a word. Luis nodded once in thanks but didn't speak. He seemed nervous around anyone besides Kara. Mid-morning, a group of students came in, 4 teenagers in matching sports jackets. They were loud but polite, asking about energy drinks and sports tape. Kara greeted them and offered to check the back for the items they couldn't find. As she walked off, Victor watched Celeste roll her eyes. "Here we go again," she muttered. "You'd think she was running for Employee of the Month or something." One of the other associates, a guy named Dylan, said under his breath. Trevor laughed. "Let her burn herself out. That's one less thing I have to deal with." Victor stepped back behind a freestanding display and watched the exchange. No one moved to help the customers. Kara returned a few minutes later with the requested items and walked the students to the register herself. The tension wasn't just passive anymore, it was being fed. At lunch, Victor sat on a supply crate near the back freezer, sipping water. Kara joined him after a few minutes, pulling out a notebook and scribbling something inside. Her hands were still a little dusty from breaking down boxes. "You always write during your break?" he asked. She smiled slightly. "Helps me track what we actually finish during the day. We're supposed to log tasks digitally, but the system's been down for weeks. No one seemed to care, so I started using this." He leaned forward. "You're keeping your own records?" "Yeah. Mostly so I can prove when things go wrong that it wasn't us not doing our jobs. But I don't think anyone's reading the reports anyway." Victor nodded slowly. "You ever bring it up to Dana?" "I tried. She said I was overstepping, that it's not my role to track other people's performance." He didn't respond. There was a lot he wanted to say, but Rick wouldn't. An hour later, back on the floor, a customer approached looking for a refund. She was older, maybe in her 60s, holding a torn package of air filters. Victor stepped aside as she explained that the box had been opened when she brought it home. Trevor strolled up behind the counter, glanced at the package, and shook his head. "Sorry, can't take this back. You must have opened it yourself." The woman blinked. "No, I didn't. It was like this when I bought it. I even have the receipt." "Doesn't matter," Trevor said. "Company policy." Kara stepped in from a nearby aisle. "Actually, if it's within 30 days and the product wasn't used, we're supposed to offer an exchange or refund." Trevor's jaw tightened. "You're not management. I'm just saying, you're done saying," he snapped, then turned back to the customer. "You can call corporate if you want, but I already told you what it is." The woman left, furious. Victor followed Kara to the back room quietly. "You've worked here long?" he asked. "Little over a year. I transfer credits from community college, so flexible hours help." He watched her sort returned items into bins. "I saw how you handled that woman. You were right. Why didn't Dana step in?" "She's barely out here," Kara said. "Usually stays in the office unless someone messes up a display or we're short on headcount." Luis walked in carrying a cracked plastic bin. "Kara, they spilled bleach near aisle 6. I tried to block it off, but Celeste said it's not her job to clean it." Kara grabbed gloves and a mop. Victor followed. As Kara scrubbed the floor, Celeste leaned against a nearby shelf scrolling through her phone. Dylan lounged next to her, sipping from a branded sports drink that hadn't been purchased. "You're not supposed to drink store stock," Kara said without looking up. Dylan scoffed. I'll ring it up later. Victor stepped closer. You know that's theft, right? Celeste looked up. Relax. New guy doesn't know how we do things. Apparently not, Victor muttered. Later that day, Dana finally emerged from the office. She walked briskly down the aisle, clipboard in hand, eyes only scanning displays. She paused near Kara and frowned. Why is this end cap half empty? We sold through most of it this morning, Kara said. I was going to restock after the bleach spill. Dana didn't respond. She scribbled something on her clipboard and walked away. Trevor appeared a few minutes later. She's in a mood today. Better stay out of her way. Victor had had enough. After closing, he approached Dana outside the office. Hey, I've got a question. Do we log in anywhere to track what we've completed during the day? She glanced at him. You're new, right? That's not your concern. Just follow what your lead tells you. I've noticed a lot of tasks aren't getting done. She raised an eyebrow. That's not how we run things here. He let it drop. For now. The next morning it rained. Hard. By the time employees arrived, the back lot was a mess of puddles and mud. Kara's shoes were soaked by the time she made it to the door. Celeste and Dylan arrived 15 minutes late, high-fiving as they stepped out of a friend's car parked in one of the reserved spots. Still dry, Dylan said, brushing off his hoodie. Victor stood near the time clock, watching silently. Luis arrived next, drenched from head to toe. He didn't say a word as he clocked in. Trevor came in last, shaking off his umbrella. Anyone see the score last night? No one answered. At midday, Dana called a quick huddle. Corporate will be reviewing store performance next quarter, she said flatly. If we don't improve our customer satisfaction scores, we're looking at staffing adjustments. So let's tighten things up. Victor watched as Kara quietly took notes. After Dana left, Celeste muttered, Guess we better look busy when someone's watching. No one laughed this time. That afternoon, a man with a service dog entered the store. He was looking for a specific brand of joint braces and asked for help locating them. Celeste turned him away without making eye contact. We don't carry that brand, she said. Kara overheard and walked over. We do. Aisle 10, bottom shelf, she said gently. I can walk with you if you'd like. The man nodded appreciatively. Victor stood frozen for a second, then followed them discreetly. By the time they reached the aisle, the man's hand was shaking slightly. Kara knelt to retrieve the brace for him, spoke softly, and walked him to checkout. As he left, he stopped to shake her hand. You're the only reason I'll come back, he said. Victor turned and walked straight to the back office. Dana wasn't at her desk, just her laptop and a stack of printouts. He sat in the chair and stared at the wall. He'd seen all he needed to see. Favoritism, disregard for company policy, open discrimination against customers, good employees being buried under the weight of others' laziness. It wasn't just a management problem anymore. It was a leadership one, and he was done pretending. Rainwater still clung to the edges of the loading dock the next morning when Victor arrived earlier than anyone else. He unlocked the employee entrance with a key he'd had wired to his fake ID badge and stepped into the dark store. The silence felt heavier than usual. He walked to the back office and placed a small camera on the top corner shelf. It was angled discreetly, pointed toward the desk and the door. The internal audit team would review the footage later. For now, he needed to make sure nothing else slipped through the cracks. By 7:30, the others began arriving. Luis came in first, his hoodie damp at the cuffs. He gave a short nod and headed to the back without speaking. Kara came in behind him, hair tied back tighter than usual, moving slower than she had earlier in the week. Victor noticed her wince slightly as she pulled open the stockroom door. She didn't say anything about it. Morning, he offered. Morning, she replied, voice low. Trevor showed up at 7:50, shaking out his windbreaker and tossing it over a chair. He looked irritated before he even clocked in. "Where's Dylan?" he asked as he walked past Victor. "No idea." "Of course you don't." By 8:15, Celeste strolled in, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. She clocked in just as the first customer walked through the door. Victor worked alongside Kara for most of the morning, helping restock aisle displays. She barely spoke, and when she did, her responses were clipped. Somewhere between exhaustion and resignation. He didn't push. "Hey," he said finally, keeping his voice low. "You doing all right?" She kept folding plastic shelf labels, eyes on her hands. "Long week. You sure you're not hurt?" he asked, nodding subtly toward her side. She hesitated. "Pulled something yesterday lifting freight. Trevor told me not to say anything about it. Said it'd slow things down." Victor felt a heat rise in his chest. "You need to get that checked." "I don't have PTO," she said, still not looking at him. "And if I take time off, I lose hours for next week." He didn't answer. He just handed her a roll of pricing stickers. An hour later, he saw Dylan finally come in over an hour late. No explanation, no apology. He walked straight to the back, fist bumped Trevor, and disappeared into the break room. When he reemerged, he was carrying a half-empty energy drink and a bag of chips. "You planning to do anything today?" Victor asked, watching him tear open the bag. "I'm here, aren't I?" Dylan replied, mouth already full. Victor looked at Trevor, who was leaning against the end cap shelf with his arms crossed. "You good with that?" he asked. Trevor shrugged. "He'll catch up." Victor turned and walked away before he said something that would blow his cover too early. Around 11, a woman in a worn green coat entered the store with two young kids. They were quiet, staying close to her side. She approached the front register, holding a stack of coupons and asking about a promotion that had expired the day before. Celeste barely looked up. "Promo's over," she said flatly. "I know, but I called yesterday and someone said they might still honor it," the woman replied. "Doesn't work like that," Celeste said, tapping her nails on the counter. The kids stood silently, holding a box of cereal and a bottle of shampoo. Victor stepped in. "I can check with the manager," he offered. Celeste rolled her eyes. "You don't need to." "I already said no." "I wasn't asking you," he said without raising his voice. He walked to the office and knocked once before stepping inside. Dana was at the computer, typing with one hand and holding a protein bar in the other. "There's a customer up front asking about a promo extension. She said she called yesterday." "Then she should have come yesterday," Dana said without looking up. "She has her kids with her. She's not asking for anything out of policy, just a little flexibility." Dana sighed. "We don't bend rules for sob stories. It sets a precedent." Victor stared at her. "You're sure that's the line you want to take?" Dana looked up, annoyed. "Yes, that's the line." He left without another word. As he passed Kara in the aisle, he whispered, "Can you ring that family up and give them the promo discount? I'll cover the difference." She nodded once and stepped toward the register. Celeste watched from behind the counter, but didn't interfere. The rest of the shift passed in a quiet, grinding rhythm. Shelves half filled. Trash left in bins. One of the freezer doors had condensation building up on the inside. After closing, Victor stayed behind. Trevor and Dana were still in the office reviewing schedules. He knocked on the door. "You need something?" Dana asked. "Yeah," he said, stepping inside and shutting the door behind him. "I'm not Rick." Trevor stood up. "What?" Victor pulled the ID badge from his chest and placed it on the desk. "My name is Victor Langley. I own this company." Dana's face went pale. Trevor didn't say anything. I've been here for 5 days, Victor continued. I've seen enough to know this store is failing because of how it's run, not because of the people on the floor. Dana's voice cracked slightly. If there were concerns, you could have addressed them professionally. I'm addressing them now, he said. Let's start with this. You're both done. Effective immediately. Trevor stepped forward. You can't just fire people without HR protocol. I can when it involves negligence, abuse of authority, and violations of both employee rights and company policy. You told a staff member not to report an injury. You've denied service to customers based on personal judgment. You've allowed theft, fostered a toxic environment, and retaliated against employees who actually work. Dana finally spoke. You don't know what it's like trying to keep this place running. We're understaffed. We deal with constant turnover. The hours are brutal. You've had good people trying to help. You ignored them. Neither of them responded. Victor turned to the door. Pack your things. Security will escort you out in 15 minutes. I've already called them. He left the office and walked straight to the front of the store, where Kara was cleaning the last register. Can I talk to you? He asked. Sure, she said, pulling off her gloves. In the office. Bring Luis too, if he's still here. The three of them sat in the break room. Victor leaned forward in his chair. I know who you are, Kara said quietly. Victor nodded. I figured you might have guessed. She looked down. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be wrong. I appreciate that, he said. You've carried this store, and I'm sorry it took me this long to see it. Luis didn't speak, but his eyes stayed locked on Victor. I've fired Dana and Trevor, Victor continued. Effective now. Celeste and Dylan will be suspended pending review. We're bringing in an interim manager from the training team tomorrow. You'll be reporting directly to her. Neither Kara nor Luis said anything for a moment. I don't want a promotion if that's what this is, Kara said finally. I just want to work in a place where I'm not cleaning up after everyone else. You won't be, Victor said. Starting next week, you'll be officially recognized as the lead operations associate. You'll train and oversee new hires with a pay increase and benefits. Luis, same applies, you'll be our senior stock handler. We'll fix the equipment and we'll hire more help. Luis nodded slowly. I'm also setting up a direct line between this store and my office. If things slip again, you won't have to wait for someone to notice. Victor stood. I owe this store better, he said. And I owe both of you better. Kara looked up. Then give us the tools to do it right, she said. I will, Victor promised. Starting tomorrow. The next morning, the back lot was still soaked from the previous night's storm, but the clouds had cleared. Victor arrived early, this time through the front entrance, dressed in a pressed navy button-down and dark slacks. No disguise, no alias. Employees arriving for their shifts glanced at him with uncertain expressions, unsure whether to say something or just act like they didn't see him. Inside, the store was quiet, but not tense. Just waiting. A few minutes before the doors opened, Kara stepped through the stockroom, her arm wrapped in a compression sleeve. She paused when she saw Victor by the front counters, then walked up with steady steps. You're really here as yourself today, she said. Victor nodded. It's time people see who's responsible. She glanced toward the back. They told us over the intercom that a new manager was coming in. She's in the office now. Her name's Clara. She came from our West District, one of the top performing locations. She's not here to clean up anyone's mess. She's here to help rebuild. Kara folded her arms. Not combative, just cautious. We've had people drop in before. They usually leave when it gets difficult. She won't, Victor said. And neither will I. Before Kara could respond, the front doors opened and the first few customers trickled in. Luis emerged from the back a minute later, pushing a cart stacked with dry goods. His expression didn't change when he saw Victor, but he gave a small nod, then returned to stocking. By 10 that morning, the shift had found a rhythm but a different one than before. Clara had quietly moved through each department, not correcting people, just watching. She pulled Kara aside near the seasonal aisle, not with authority, but respect. "I read your shift notes," Clara said. "They were detailed. Honest. That's rare. They weren't written for anyone to read, just in case things got worse." "Well, we're reading them now." Clara didn't linger. She moved on to observe Luis reorganizing a shipment of overstocked canned goods, then paused to speak with the cashier on duty, a middle-aged woman named Denise who had transferred in 2 weeks earlier. Denise had been keeping her head down since arrival, unsure who to trust. Clara listened. She didn't interrupt. She just asked how the cash register system was running and whether she had all the supplies she needed. Denise nodded, then added that the receipt printer had been jamming for 3 days. Clara wrote it down immediately. Victor stayed out of the way that morning, choosing instead to walk the aisles alone. For the first time, customers were approaching staff and getting real answers. No one was pretending to be busy. No one was watching the clock. They were working not with urgency, but with purpose. It wasn't perfect. The store still had gaps. The freezer door hadn't been fixed yet. The back room still needed a full inventory cleanup. But the dead weight was gone, and the people left weren't wasting a second of it. At noon, Victor gathered the staff in the break room. Not just Kara and Luis, but the full team, including Denise, a few newer hires, and even the night cleaning crew that had just clocked in. "Thanks for joining me," Victor said, standing near the supply cabinet. "I won't take long. I just want to be direct." People leaned in, some standing, others seated on crates or against the wall. "This store has been neglected. That's on me. I believed the reports that came through, and I didn't ask the right questions. I relied on numbers and overlooked people. That ends now." No one spoke. "I've taken action. Leadership has changed. Expectations have changed. But support will change too. Effective this week, we're bringing in 3 new hires to stabilize shifts. Kara and Luis will receive formal titles and corresponding raises. Benefits will be adjusted to include full sick leave and injury coverage for all part-time employees. If your body gives out on the job, you shouldn't have to choose between healing and paying rent." He paused, letting that land. "We're also implementing a real-time feedback system. Every employee gets a code that links directly to the district office, no filtering, no middlemen. You see something wrong, you report it directly." Victor looked over at Kara, who met his eyes but didn't blink. "To those of you who've been doing the work without recognition, thank you. To those who are new, this is your standard now. If that doesn't work for you, this won't be the place for you. And that's okay. But we're not lowering the bar." There was a beat of quiet. Then from the back corner, Denise spoke. "What about the people who came in and got away with everything?" Victor didn't hesitate. "They're gone. Not transferred. Not reassigned. Gone." She nodded once, satisfied. Clara stepped forward. "Starting tomorrow, we'll be rotating shift leads. Everyone will learn how this store runs from every angle. No favorites. No shortcuts. If you want to move up, you'll have every opportunity, but you'll earn it. No applause. No cheers. Just quiet understanding." It was more powerful than any speech. The group dispersed back to their stations. Kara lingered near the door. "You didn't have to come back yourself," she said. "I did," Victor replied. "It was my name on the lease." She looked down at her sleeve, then back at him. "You still planning to visit the other stores?" "Every single one." She gave a small nod. "Start asking the right people next time." "I will." Later that afternoon, Victor stood behind the customer service desk, watching a mother and her daughter browse the back-to-school supplies. The daughter pointed to a bright red folder, and the mother smiled, placing it in the cart. Denise rang them up with ease. No attitude, no resistance. Just service. Luis passed by with an empty dolly, his shirt damp with sweat but his posture steady. Kara was near the register, explaining the difference between two similar cleaning products to a man who looked genuinely confused. She wasn't rushing. She didn't sound tired. She just explained, then walked him to the aisle where it was stocked. Victor stepped outside just as a gray sedan pulled into the front lot. The driver hesitated, then parked in one of the previously reserved spots. Victor approached calmly. "Those spots are no longer restricted," he said. "You're welcome to park here." The man nodded. "I'm just picking up an online order." Victor smiled slightly. "We'll bring it right out." He radioed inside. Minutes later, Luis emerged with the order on a wheeled cart. He didn't flinch at the rainwater still pooled near the curb. He rolled the cart to the trunk and helped the man load up without a word. Back inside, Victor signed the maintenance order for the freezer repair. It would take a few days, but it was scheduled. He left through the front entrance. No one stopped him. No one needed to. As he walked back to his car, now parked in the same back lot he'd been sent to on day one, he didn't feel out of place. He hadn't earned his way back to the front. Not yet, but the store had. One step at a time.